Welcome to another episode of Strictly Business Unscripted. I'm your host, Keandra Jones. This podcast educates, ignites inspiration, fosters encouragement, and paves the way for growth among small businesses and the overall Oak Cliff community. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Dallas Zoo, Home Care Network, Breakfast Brothers, and Serve Pro. Thank you for your support. Now, let's get into today's show. Lisa New has over 30 years in the zoo field. She's got degrees in zoology and ethology, which is the study of animal behavior. She studied chimpanzees for graduate work. She's heavily involved in the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. She's the immediate past chair of that board with lots of international work in animal population management. And before assuming this overall leadership role, she had 10 plus years of experience. She currently lives in Oak Cliff. She has 2 adult children. One's 21, one's 24. She loves being outdoors. She loves plants, and she loves building terrariums. Am I saying that right?
Terrariums.
Terrariums.
Yeah.
You can tell that's not a hobby of mine. Terrariums. That's one of her hobbies. Please welcome Lisa New, Dallas CEO. How are you today?
I'm doing
Dallas
great.
Zoo CEO.
Thank you for
Dallas
having
Zoo.
me.
Thank you so much for being here. I cannot read on this Friday morning,
It's
so please
okay.
forgive me.
It's all good.
Forgive me. But thank you.
We know your intention.
Yes.
That's right.
So when I was reading through all the things, and I did actually read this before I got here.
I appreciate
you can't
that.
you can't tell. I was more impressed with you than ever before.
Aw.
Now I've met you. I met you about a year ago.
Yes, you were so welcoming to me. One of my first coffee dates. I think probably in January when I started almost a year ago today.
Yeah. And there was an immediate connection.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because, well, you're just so down to earth, number one, and I appreciate that because there are very few women that are in these spaces that are just as down to earth as you are, and I love that. And then we talked about karaoke, which is a
Passion of yours.
Yes, which I
Yeah.
love.
And we've not done that yet, by the way.
Okay, so I want to publicly extend an invitation to you for Sunday evening karaoke.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So, State Rep Vinton Jones and I and his partner and a bunch of folks get together on Sundays at the Roundup.
And you sing.
Yes, and so, well, I don't sing well, but we do perform.
It sounds fun.
You should come. It starts at 5 o'clock. So, anybody listening, come on out. We have a great, great time.
Okay.
Now, don't come with expectations of.
No, and I only have 2 songs that I can do, so.
we want to hear them. We want to hear all your songs and see your dance moves because that's what it's about.
That's where it's scary, yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. And there's tambourines there, so
Okay.
we'll
Yeah, you can do that.
be your
Yeah.
backup dancers.
Thank you. Sounds fun.
So I've got some questions for you. Okay, so I know we just met about a year ago, but and there are a few things that I know about you. But tell everyone who's listening, who is Lisa New outside of all of these amazing accomplishments? Who are you?
You know, you said I'm down to earth. I really am. I'm a bit of a homebody, but I like the arts and culture scene. I have, 2 old dogs that made the journey with me from Tennessee to Texas, and I just like hanging out with my friends and my family, and having a good time meeting people. So it's been a year of that for sure.
Okay, so talk to me. So we've heard about some of your hobbies. Talk to me about some of those hobbies and how that began, especially your passion for animals.
I always, growing up, I had dogs, and mostly dogs, maybe 1 guinea pig, no cats, but I was always interested in animals.
Okay.
Didn't have a ton of exposure to them other than my household pets, but when I got into college, I became really more interested in adaptations and why animals have evolved into the beings that they are to thrive in their environment. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't so much that I always loved animals as I loved all the wonderful weirdness about all of us in the on the planet, and why we have the characteristics we do that make us thrive. I mean, why does an anteater have a super long tongue and nose, and why does an elephant have a trunk, and how has all that come to be? So that was what drew me to the business, or the field of study of animal behavior. And then from there, of course, you can't be around wonderful wild animals and not then develop a deep love for them. So that's sort of how it came to be. And then I think, along those same lines, plants have all those same fascinations and characteristics. I mean, think about a Venus flytrap. Why? How in the world did a plant evolve that it could eat animals? And so those kind of things just fascinate me, and all that sort of fosters a love of nature and being outside.
So I have so many questions based on that answer. So I guess number one, I was about to say your little ones, but you don't have little ones. You've got adult
They'll
children.
always be my little ones, my babies. But
Your
yes,
babies. Do they share in this love for plants and animals? Do they have the same kind of passion that you do?
It's funny. One of them particularly does. My oldest is in cybersecurity, and so really he loves being outside, and he loves hiking and those kind of things. But my younger son is finishing up his senior year in college and in environmental science. And he has just, over the past 2 years, I've seen him light up. Like he's found his passion. He loves and has studied fish and fisheries, and his college is at the base of the Smoky Mountains, so they spend almost every Friday in the field in the Smokies studying plants and animals. And so he and I share a love of, what's that bird call, and what's this plant. And so it's fun to see that alight in him. I told him it's not necessarily a path to wealth, but you can see the passion in his eyes, and I'm proud of both of them.
Sure.
But he certainly has taken on that love. We went to Scotland last year for a family vacation, and we had a great time in Edinburgh, and then we went up into the Highlands. And as we were going up into the Highlands, he just came, the youngest, they both did, but he particularly just came alive. And he's like, there's something about nature and being outdoors that just sets me on fire. So we had a great 2 days up there, and then we came back down into Glasgow, and my older son starts coming to life. He starts like bouncing off the walls, and he's like, I love being outdoors, but oh my gosh, the vibrancy of the city. And so they're sort of like my city mouse and country mouse, but they each can operate in either environment.
That's awesome. You mentioned the evolution of animals and how they've adapted to their environments over time. Talk to us about one of the most changed animals over time. How did it begin, and what does it look like today?
That's a hard one. But there's a couple of examples that come to mind. A lot of people, for instance, don't realize that, and this may sound very controversial, but in some ways, cows are more evolved than humans. Really? And so you think, what the heck? And so we think of our brain capacity and our, ability to adapt to different circumstances, and that's a different piece of our evolution. But cows have a four-chambered stomach. They chew their cud, they eat grass and plant material that isn't easy to digest, and so over time, they have evolved to have these series of stomachs that break down that plant material into usable energy for them. Humans have a single-chambered stomach. It's simple, less evolved than a cow stomach. But that means that we can eat a variety of different foods and break that down into energy. But people don't often think that in some ways cows have adapted to their environment in a certain way and have a more evolved stomach, for instance, than humans.
Very interesting. I would have never have thought that you would say a cow. That you.
Yeah, but people just, it's all what you study and your expertise and your background. And, for me, when I was in college, I took a primate evolution class, and they put a tooth in my hand, and I can't remember what the specific animal that the tooth was. But, the anthropologists were talking about how, through that tooth, we know how old the animal was, what the animal's primary diet and its environment was. And I was kind of just blown away that we can know so much about animals from thousands of years ago simply by their tooth. And so that sort of led me into, just a fascination with things like the cow, like how it has adapted to survive over time. And one thing about humans and apes that is remarkable about us is our ability to adapt to a variety of circumstances. So, that's unique to us. We can live in sweltering climates or cold climates. If food is scarce of one food type, we can find another, and that's what's unique about us.
Very, very interesting. So, okay, now that is an animal that's evolved over time. What is, of all the animals you've studied, what is your absolute favorite and why?
Well, that's a tricky question if any of my zoo team are listening. But most of my experience is with chimpanzees, and so I'm probably going to say that they're my favorite. In the business, we call them the scrappy ape. They're, they are. Often we see on greeting cards or in the media are these adorable little infant chimps, but they actually grow up to be, quite powerful, cunning, smart, and very dangerous creatures. But they are full of personality. They wear their hearts on their sleeve. There's no pretense with them. They know. If they're upset, if they're kind of can understand their behavior, but they're just so complex. I mean, they are the only other species we know that sort of engages in territorial warfare. So their males will go off and search their perimeter and, attack any animals or any other chimpanzees that are intruding into their territory. The males form lifelong bonds, and, females and will stay with their mothers sometime for all their life. So it's just, it's sometimes a little unnerving, but they're just brilliant, magnificent animals, and I have really enjoyed, getting to study them in my life.
So I can feel how passionate you are, especially about the chimpanzees. And so that makes you so suitable for your position here at the Dallas Zoo. I must admit, I've never been fascinated by a chimpanzee. It's more fear that I feel than anything else.
It's easy to fear them, yeah.
And so let's talk about your journey to the Dallas Zoo, becoming the first female Dallas Zoo CEO, which is huge. What was that journey like to get here? How did you get here?
Well, I would back up and say, 20 years ago, if you had asked me if I would be a CEO of a multi-million-dollar organization, I could have never seen that in my future. I was really operating at the level of an animal care VP, and I was, working nationally and internationally with my work, and I'm very fulfilled. And the opportunity came to put my hat in the ring for the job in Knoxville, Tennessee, to be their CEO. And at the time, I wasn't interested, but But the reason I take you back that far is because shortly before I'd made that decision, I came to Dallas Zoo to do their accreditation inspection. So to be part of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, you go through a very rigorous peer evaluation, peer review, in order to achieve that sort of gold standard of accreditation. Mm-hmm. And I, like many, are inspectors that serve in that. So I came here. Mm-hmm. And it was shortly after Dallas Zoo had privatized. Mm-hmm. And so we do those inspections every 5 years. Mm-hmm. 5 years prior, Dallas Zoo had been a public zoo, not one of the best, not very well thought of, and they had privatized. And in the course of 5 years, the momentum and what had happened here was staggering, and it was really largely attributed to Greg Hudson, my predecessor. And it was just remarkable listening to staff, hearing staff talk about the transformation, staff who had moved from city government management now to this new system, and were following the vision of this leader. And I remember in that public forum, I started to get very emotional. I was sort of just choking back my feelings. And later that evening, when we're doing our work of, reviewing our records and the team and I, one of my colleagues said, "Lisa, I looked over and I thought that you were getting choked up." I couldn't believe that the vision and leadership of one man could transform an institution in that way. Yeah. And I came back to Knoxville and thought, if Greg could do that, maybe I could do that too. And I put my name in the hat and became the first female director in Knoxville Zoo. So that was, many years ago. Fast forward to last year, and tragically and unexpectedly, Dallas Zoo lost Greg Hudson. And we are a small community in the zoo and aquarium business. Greg was a mentor and a friend. And so we all, grieved with Dallas for his loss. And they began the search. And I was recruited to come here. And it was just, it just seemed like it was full. I could have never predicted it, but it just seemed like it was full circle. And at first I was a little nervous about such a move. It's all the way across the country. Wasn't sure about, there's just a lot of uncertainty. But once I came here for my interview and met the staff and met the board and kind of reaffirmed what I already knew about the reputation of the organization, I just felt like it was some sort of divine plan, especially those connections over the years. So, another piece is I know here in Dallas, Dallasites love their zoo, but what they don't often realize is the international reputation of the Dallas Zoo. You go to the zoo to have a great day and have fun, and people love their zoo, but they don't realize that it's actually a very prestigious organization. And in fact, over the course of my 10 years, 11 years as director at Zoo Knoxville, I brought 2 different boards and 3 mayors to see the work that Dallas Zoo was doing. So we're the only zoo in the country that exhibits and has elephants that live, with giraffe and zebra and antelope and ostrich, and so really trend-setting in some of the work. So for me, Dallas Zoo has always been a benchmark, and I see that now that I'm here. And the year I've been here, we have probably hosted this year, past year alone, 5 other organizations that come to benchmark with us. So I just feel like it's where I was meant to be. Yeah. Even though I never foresaw that. Right. In the years past.
Right. It most certainly was a huge loss for the Dallas Zoo and our overall community for the untimely death of Greg Hudson. Unfortunately, I was on the board, and I remember that email that he sent and said, "Hey, I'm going to be out for this procedure." But we are so very grateful that you've been able to step in You have just wowed us.
Oh, thank you.
You have just wowed us.
It's great to have such a wonderful team that makes things happen.
I admire the work that you're doing. It's such a, we absolutely love the work that had been done. But when I first met you, I saw that you were really passionate about stepping into this role, and we talked about some things, some of the vision that you had for the organization. Can we talk about some of those things, some of your vision going forward for the Dallas Zoo organization, the overall, the zoo itself? What's your plan?
Yeah, sure. There's, there's so much and where to begin. I mean, we are in the planning and fundraising stages of the largest growth that the zoo has ever undertaken. Even bigger than Giants of the Savannah, which was sort of our key mark. So, the future for that should be very exciting and a reason for our community to continue to come year after year. We have really impressive along those same kind of trend-setting legacies that Greg created and part of his vision. And then an extension with mine is to open habitats in 27, 28, 29, and beyond that really gives people a reason that there's always something new. So that is taking a lot of my time and my team's time, planning that and being sure that we're being making smart business decisions and that what we're doing is something we can sustain. We are the largest and oldest zoo in Texas, and that is, we certainly like to be to have those things we can say about ourselves, but they come with challenges too. Being the oldest zoo in Texas means we have some of the oldest infrastructure and some ongoing needs and maintenance that we have to keep up. So we're spending a lot of time and attention not just on what's new and what's coming in the future, but making sure what we already have we're investing in and continuing to be a good stewards of this community asset. So a lot of focus on taking care of the old as we're building the new. One of the first things that I did when I came in the first 4 months was begin a search for a vice president of people and culture. That was a position that had not existed before at the zoo. We have 400 staff, and if you include our food and retail partners, over 600. We're one of the largest employers in Oak Cliff, and we have taken good care of our employees. It's a wonderful place to work, but we really want to focus on it being the best place in Dallas to work, the best workforce. And so bringing Tyrone on and his experience and background has been really exciting for us to have, professional development opportunities. And Tyrone talks a lot about, we think a lot about the guest's experience, and that is critical to our success. We don't talk as much about the employee experience. And so having an employee experience that is rich and full of growth and creating the best workplace in Dallas is a vision for me. And also then attracting more people from Oak Cliff to recognize that the zoo's a wonderful workplace, a great place. We're just right there with great benefits, flexible hours in a lot of cases. Most people just think about, well, I don't want to take care of animals. Maybe that's not my thing. But the zoo is so much more than that. People think, yes, that's probably our most public, but we have accountants and videographers and marketing specialists and veterinarians and everything in between. Human resource, the whole human resource department, tradesmen. So, and then there's all of our hospitality side, that's working tickets and selling burgers and working in retail. So it is a rich and diverse place, and making sure that our Oak Cliff community thinks of us when they're thinking about employment is part of our vision. And that means getting out and being as good of a community partner and being engaged in the community. There's so much exciting things happening with the development of the Halpern Deck Park, the work that's going on Ewing Avenue and its expansion to become a complete street. So all of that and being more sort of entrenched in the community of Oak Cliff is really a big priority.
So you mentioned, and we're going to get back to the deck park here in just a second, because you guys have been phenomenal partners there. In addition to that, you've been such a great partner to the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce, specifically as it relates to the Leadership Oak Cliff classes. And you guys have been one of our big sponsors there. We were able to bring our Leadership Oak Cliff class to the zoo a couple times. And when you're talking about workforce opportunities, I think it was an aha moment for our entire class to realize all of the different opportunities from a workforce standpoint that the Dallas Zoo offers. Right. And we appreciate allowing our community leaders to be able to see that they could go into places where you're providing services for animals, but it goes so far beyond that, to your point.
Yes.
And so we appreciate that partnership, because those community leaders can now go and be ambassadors for the Dallas Zoo and talk about how much opportunity there is as it relates to workforce. So I wanted to publicly say thank you for that partnership.
It's I think somewhat selfishly motivated. I mean, we want to be good. We want to be good community partners and citizens, but people, they just don't know, and so that exposure is helpful. It's helpful to us.
Well, that class was so helpful to me as an Oak Cliff resident, and I probably will always live in Oak Cliff. I love our Oak Cliff.
Too, yeah.
I just love it. As you know, I try to represent Oak Cliff everywhere, everywhere I go. But I had no idea myself, and I've been with the chamber all this time. I had no idea how large the Dallas Zoo is, and so personally, I appreciate the behind-the-scenes tour. That was really
the
cool.
Beauty of those leadership classes like Oak Cliff leadership, and I did one in Knoxville, Leadership Knoxville. But as a lifelong Knoxville resident, I had no idea some of the just innovative, amazing things that were happening in the Knoxville community. And that's the beauty of Leadership Oak Cliff as well, is, you can live here your whole life, but until you start to find out and look behind the curtain, it gives you a real sense of pride in where you live. So I'm really glad that you all have that opportunity. I'm glad that we have employees who have made the class and are going through it, because all of that, being able to pick up the phone and call someone in your community when you need help, or you have something to share, it's just priceless. Yeah. So thank you for hosting that. It is a valuable program for our neighborhood.
Thank you. Now, you also mentioned additional partnerships. And so you guys are partnered with a lot of different organizations in this area, including the community as a whole. I mean, you guys are wonderful community partners, and you have very thoughtful development and such a valuable asset for our community. But specifically, can we talk about your partnership and the deck park and all the things, how you guys have advocated for it, your role? I want to hear all the things about deck park partnership.
Well, first of all, the development of the deck park was a big was one of the big reasons that I was attracted to come into Dallas, because in so many ways, on different levels, but Dallas Zoo and Knoxville Zoo are on are parallel. Many zoos were built in areas that were prestigious at the time, and then fell into hardship. They're often in economically challenged areas or marginalized communities, and so that was the development of that was just starting to happen and change in Knoxville when I heard about the opportunity here in Dallas, and particularly how far along Dallas and the deck park was in development. And so talking to our board before I came, they really were, I think, pleasantly surprised that I was interested in outside the zoo proper, but very much I was, because the vitality of the zoo is linked to its community. And of course, April Allen, that runs the deck park, reached out to me very early on, as you did. We went through all the history of our relationship, and we started to work together. And so, and I particularly love it when I hear April say, we're creating a zoo district. And I think that is very sweet and unselfish of her. But, she and I have given fundraising pitches together. We meet regularly, her staff and my staff, and we really are trying to work in synergy so that it is one seamless experience when you come to the deck park. Our parking challenges are their parking challenges. And ultimately, though, to be able to be a place where, whether it's day or night, that you could, come enjoy this community, and then all of the potential, hopefully thoughtful development that spurs from the deck park can really, I hope, revitalize the area, make it the community being part of it, and really just a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So it would be good for the zoo, but it's good for the community that I live in. And of course, sometimes there's a little friendly competition, but I would say by and large, we want people, if they come to the deck park and don't come to the zoo, that's okay, because it's raised awareness of the zoo, and vice versa. Right. And if they come to the zoo, the chance of them wanting to stick around and go have a bite to eat in the deck park, go enjoy the park itself after they've experienced the zoo, is fantastic too. We don't want to be a pass-through destination. We want to be a come and stay destination, and the deck park really helps fulfill that vision. So I love seeing it come out of the ground. Love seeing it take shape. And so we spend a lot of time talking about the connections of, we want the deck park and the entrance to the zoo to have the same feeling, have the same character, that we want development of a green district, more trees. The zoo is truly an urban oasis, and we really want to be able for our front door to continue to grow and develop in the same spirit and look and feel that the deck park's emphasizing.
You're a busy lady. Obviously, you've done a lot over the last year.
No time to let grass grow under your feet.
I see. Busy, busy, busy. So at the end of your day, and I want to say this again, I am so grateful that you live in Oak Cliff. I try not to hold against other people that they don't live in Oak Cliff.
But what's wrong with them?
Right, what is wrong when you don't come to our Oak Cliff and live and plant roots? I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with these people. But anyway, thank God. But you're a smart woman. I knew that you would make the right decision.
I rented here in Oak Cliff when I first moved, and I did look at other communities during that time of rental. there's just no other place.
There isn't.
And coming from the hills of Tennessee, East Tennessee, I needed trees, I needed topography, but I just love the kind of vintage. There's just a vibe, and I just don't want to be anywhere else. It is just, it hooked me. Hooked me early.
I agree with that. And, I'll say this to anybody that'll listen. I cannot stand to hear somebody say something some ignorance about Oak Cliff. I'm like, just come over here.
That's right. Just come see.
Just come see and feel it.
So for me, I'm learning. What's new for me is to learn the history, and so I belong to all the social media historical things. I'll see something and then I have to look it up. So I'm still ignorant into all the evolution and background, but it's a passion now to learn, and to find out. So I've been quickly educated about neighborhoods and how to say them correctly, and all those things. But it is a rich cultural heritage, and it's great to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Now, after doing all these things that you do, and you are a busy woman, how do you wind down at the end of your day? How do you decompress from all the things?
Well, if there's not, it's really pretty boring. But if there's not something going on, like you and I were at the board dinner last night, so there's always something. But my typical routine is to come home. I have two very demanding dogs, and so we go for a walk, we wind down, we come back. I usually cook a little something for dinner, and then I have one or two shows, watch a show, spend a little time reading, and I'm usually in bed pretty early. So I'm not that exciting, but that's how I like to. That's how I like to wind down. And I actually, my job, your job, it's very public forward, whether it is with the community or my team. So I'm on all day, and I might seem like an extrovert, but I'm right on that line of extrovert, introvert, and I need some quiet and some solitude to kind of reground. And if I don't have that, then it starts to wear. So it was good for me over the holidays. Most people are, Dallas sites love to have holiday parties, but they do. And I did my share. But I wasn't traveling. My job often requires a lot of travel. I wasn't traveling in November and December. My children came here for 10 days, and we just hibernated. Everybody said, would you take them? And we got to go to a Dallas Cowboys football game, and we did some fun things. But, every night I'd say, what do you want to do? They're like, we just want to be home. And I'm like, me too. So we just had a little, hunkering down, hibernating Christmas, and it was magnificent. And it really recharged me. So came back on New Year's Eve, and I was raring to go.
I'm so happy to hear that. A lot of times when we talk to folks that, are passionate about the work that they do, and I think that we should be, I think that sometimes we don't know how to decompress. And if you keep going and keep going and keep going, you don't have a hobby, you don't have a way of decompressing, something's going to happen with these bodies that we're in.
That's right.
And so I'm happy to hear that that you have a routine. It took me a long time to get one.
Well, I'm learning. One thing with, I had a very, I think, healthy routine back in Knoxville. Moving here, the pace has been so fast that I haven't been able to establish my regular exercise routine and some of the things that I need to do. And so this year's really been, I know the year is new, but I've really been focused on establishing that, taking care of myself. So those other things were sort of mental, but now it's time to kind of take care of the physical. And I've been traveling a lot over the past year. I'll still have to travel a lot this year, but being able to find the time for yoga and terrarium building and those things that I like to do for my hobbies. I took a back seat last year, and that's okay. It was a transition year. But it's time to bring those back.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. I made the sacrifice of nails for therapy.
We all make our choices, and that's okay.
That is a part of my routine now. So
everybody needs a therapist and a coach, and they're not the same.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
You need a therapist and a coach, and probably I need more therapy than coaching. So
depends where we are. Yeah.
So one of the things that we like to end the show with is a question for me. So can you think of any one thing? It can be anything.
Anything. Oh, well, I'm going to find out about karaoke on Sunday,
Yes.
so I'll save that. I guess I'm just curious about how your passion for Oak Cliff came to be. Because you weren't born and raised here.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm originally from East Texas,
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Texas specifically, and it came over time. My predecessor was Bob Stimson, and he was a very passionate. I'm learning what the word passionate actually means.
You know it when you see it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my goodness. He was very, very passionate about Oak Cliff, and moving here almost 20 years ago.
Oh, it's changed so much.
It has, and I was like, why is he so passionate about this place? But he challenged me to move here. And when I did, it's like something just happened, and it was overnight. I don't know what that something is, but that something was the thing for me. Yeah. And overnight, I became an Oak Cliff ambassador. Like, I will put Oak Cliff on everything, everything I wear.
Yeah.
And I will talk about Oak Cliff everywhere I go. A funny story, I went to New York. I love Broadway shows. And so I will frequently just go and catch a show here and there. And I had on one of my Oak Cliff shirts, as I normally do. And there was a person right there in Times Square that came up to me and he said, "I love Oak Cliff."
Don't you love that? That's awesome.
I love Oak Cliff. I used to live in Oak Cliff. And so there is, to your point earlier, such a sense of pride here in Oak Cliff. And once you get the bug, you got it. It doesn't go away. It's almost unexplainable.
Well, your ambassadorship has done a lot for the community, and I haven't told you this, but it's been a few weeks ago. I was driving down the road, somewhere in Oak Cliff, I can't remember, and I saw this woman talking on her phone, telling it like it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is Keandra doing right out there in the middle of I don't know who you were talking to or what you were doing, but I knew from a distance. What is she doing?
That is funny.
Standing out like a beacon.
It probably had something to do with
in the middle of nowhere in some unknown road, and I was like, she's got something going on. She's trying to bring some awareness to something, and I was looking around going, I wonder what she's talking about today.
I appreciate that, and that's probably no telling. But the things that I believe in, I will fight tooth and nail about.
You're passionate too. Yeah. It's obvious. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. I love being here, and I'm so grateful for the Oak Cliff Chamber. You particularly reached out to me. Of course, you're on our board, but you reached out to me. You introduced me to developers and people in the area right away, and then I just am really Oak Cliff Chamber was the first that welcomed me to the community and had a reception, and really right away started making me feel welcome. So I am forever indebted to that. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. We love the work that you're doing. We're in full support. Anything you need from us.
Absolutely. And you always have been. So
we will continue to be that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. I hope you have a fabulous day.
Me too.
Yeah.
It will be.
Yeah.
Because it's Friday.
It is Friday.
It is Friday.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Have a great one, and we will see you next time.
Okay.
I'm your host, Keandra Jones. And again, thank you for watching another episode of Strictly Business Unscripted. We'll see you next time.